Today, I am reviewing the KAMRUI Pinova P2 mini PC. If at any time you'd like to explore this product for yourself and grab it at a great price, be sure to check the links below the video. When it comes to mini PCs, the market is currently flooded with hundreds of options that all look roughly the same and promise the world. It is easy to get lost in a sea of specifications, but today we are looking at the KAMRUI Pinova P2, which features the AMD Ryzen 7330U processor. Before we dive into the technicalities and the real-world utility of this machine, I want to remind you that you can check the links below the video to explore the product page or find its current pricing. Prices in this category fluctuate quite a bit, so that link is the best way to see if it fits your budget right now. Let's start with the heart of this machine, which is the Ryzen 7330U. If you are familiar with the history of mobile processors, you know that AMD has been doing a lot of heavy lifting in the efficiency department over the last few years. This chip is based on the Zen 3 architecture, and it brings 4 cores and 8 threads to the table. In a mini PC, that is a very important distinction because many budget-friendly alternatives rely on older dual-core chips or the newer Intel N-series chips which are built for efficiency, but often lack the multi-threaded muscle required for more demanding tasks. The 7330U is a significant step up from the older chips like the 3500U or the 10110U that you might see in older or cheaper refurbished units. When you're looking at a system like the P2, you're getting a processor that is essentially designed to handle a modern desktop workflow without sweating. It is comfortable with multiple browser tabs, spreadsheet management, and even some light media editing. However, we need to be realistic about what a 15-watt TDP processor can actually do. This is not a gaming rig, and it is not a workstation for rendering 4K video projects in real time. It is a productivity powerhouse. If your day involves constant multitasking, switching between video conferencing apps, office suites, and internal databases, the 7330U handles that with ease. The 16GB of LPDDR4X RAM included in this build is the real hero here. In a world where many budget mini PCs ship with 8GB, which is honestly the bare minimum for Windows 11, having 16GB gives you that extra breathing room. It means you are not constantly hitting the swap file on your SSD, which keeps the system feeling snappy even after you have had a dozen windows open for a few hours. The storage situation is another point worth discussing. It comes with a 256GB M.2 SSD. Right off the bat, I have to be honest, 256GB is not a lot of space in 2024. If you have a large library of high-resolution photos, games, or video files, you're going to fill that up in a week. The good news is that the KAMRUI P2 is designed with expansion in mind. It includes 2 storage expansion slots, which is a major advantage over some of the more compact, sealed-off mini PCs that leave you stuck with what you get out of the box. You can add an M.2 2280 SATA or NVMe drive, and there is an additional SATA slot as well. This makes the P2 a very strong candidate for a home server, a file storage box, or a secondary machine where you can slowly upgrade the storage as your needs grow. Now, let's talk about the visual capabilities, because this is often where mini PCs fall short. The integrated Radeon graphics with 6 compute units is a solid performer for this price bracket. Because it is using the Vega architecture, it is much more capable than the integrated graphics found on those basic Intel chips. If you are a professional who needs to run a triple monitor setup, this machine can handle it. The combination of an HDMI 2.0 port, a DisplayPort 1.4 port, and a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C port that supports DisplayPort Alt mode means you have a lot of flexibility. Driving 3 4K displays at 60 Hz is a big claim, and while it can certainly output the signal, you have to remember that the processor is working hard to drive that many pixels. For office work, stock trading, or data monitoring, it is fantastic. If you try to run high-intensity applications on all 3 screens simultaneously, you will likely notice some system lag. It is a tool for productivity, not a high-end graphics workstation. The physical design of the KAMRUI P2 is what you would expect from a modern mini PC. It is about 5 inches square and under 2 inches tall, which makes it virtually invisible on a desk. The inclusion of a VESA mount is a standard feature, but it is one that I highly recommend using. Mounting this behind your monitor completely clears your desk, which is the whole point of buying a mini PC in the first place. The build quality feels decent for the price. It is largely plastic, which is typical for this market segment, but it feels sturdy enough that you won't worry about it falling apart if you move it between rooms or take it on a business trip. One thing that often gets overlooked in these reviews is the cooling system. Mini PCs are notoriously difficult to cool because there is so little internal volume for airflow. The KAMRUI P2 uses a fan that is tuned to be quiet, and in my experience with similar machines, it stays quiet during light tasks like web browsing or streaming. When you start pushing the processor, the fan will ramp up. It is not a jet engine, but you will hear it. If you are sensitive to fan noise, you might want to keep the unit tucked away or mounted behind a monitor to dampen the sound. The cooling is effective enough to prevent thermal throttling during normal usage, which is really all you can ask for in a chassis this size. Let's talk about the ideal user for the KAMRUI P2. If you are a student, a home office worker, or someone looking for a media server, this is a perfect fit. It is also an excellent choice for a secondary machine for the kids to do their homework on. If you are a developer looking for a small Linux box to run headless tasks or a low-power home automation controller, the Ryzen chip is very efficient and offers great value for the price. It is also a great option for people who want to replace a bulky tower PC that is taking up too much space under their desk. However, there are definitely people who should avoid this machine. If you are a gamer looking to play modern AAA titles, you're going to be disappointed. While the Radeon graphics are better than basic Intel UHD graphics, they are not intended for gaming. You might get away with playing some older titles or less demanding esports games at lower settings, but that is not where this machine shines. If you are a video editor working with 4K footage in Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, you should look for something with a dedicated GPU or a more powerful desktop-class processor. You also should not buy this if you are expecting the performance of a high-end gaming laptop or a workstation-grade desktop. It is a mid-range productivity machine, and it is important to manage your expectations accordingly. Another point of contention for some might be the brand support. KAMRUI is a recognizable name in the mini PC space, but they operate differently than the big box manufacturers like Dell, HP, or Lenovo. You are not going to get the same level of enterprise-grade support or a local service center. They offer a 12-month satisfaction service and lifetime technical support, which is standard for this tier of electronics, but you should be comfortable with basic troubleshooting if you run into driver issues or hardware quirks. If you are the type of person who needs a technician to come to your door if something goes wrong, you should probably stick to the major retailers. Let's talk about the value proposition. When you compare the P2 to the competition, the Ryzen 7330U is the star. It is a very well-balanced chip that sits right in the sweet spot of performance and power consumption. You are getting a lot of utility for your money, especially when you consider the triple display support and the storage expansion options. If you were to build a custom PC with these specs, it would be almost impossible to do it at this price point once you factor in the cost of a Windows license, a case, a power supply, and the motherboard. That is the magic of these mini PCs. They offer a level of convenience and cost-effectiveness that is very difficult to ignore. However, there are likely going to be some minor disappointments for some users. The internal Wi-Fi and Bluetooth modules in these machines are usually generic, and while they work perfectly fine for most people, they might not offer the same range or stability as a high-end desktop card with external antennas. If you rely on a rock-solid, low-latency wireless connection for gaming or massive file transfers, you might find yourself wanting to plug in an Ethernet cable. The good news is that there is a gigabit LAN port, so you have that option. Also, the USB ports are plentiful, but they are all located on the device, so depending on your desk setup, cable management can get a little messy. You might want to invest in a small USB hub if you have a lot of peripherals that you need to plug and unplug frequently. I also want to touch on the operating system. These machines come with Windows pre-installed, and while it works fine, some people prefer to wipe the drive and do a fresh install of Windows or a distribution of Linux. If you plan on doing that, just make sure you have your drivers backed up or accessible from the manufacturer's website. These small boards often use specific drivers for the Wi-Fi or the audio controller that can be a headache to hunt down if you do a clean install and the OS doesn't automatically detect them. It is not a deal breaker, but it is something to keep in mind if you're a power user who likes to customize their software environment. Another thing to consider is the power adapter. It is a small brick, but it is another thing to manage. The P2 is very efficient, so it does not draw much power, but you do need to make sure you have a spare outlet near your monitor. Some people prefer USB-C power delivery, but this unit uses a standard barrel jack. It is a reliable connection, though, and less prone to coming loose than a USB-C port that might be carrying both power and data. When it comes to the long-term reliability of these machines, they are generally quite good. Since there are no moving parts other than the fan, and the SSD is a solid-state component, there is not much to break. The most common point of failure in any computer is the power supply or the fan. If the fan ever fails years down the road, it is usually a standard size that you can replace if you are handy with a screwdriver. The SSD is also a standard M.2 format, so you are not locked into proprietary parts. That is a huge plus for longevity. I think the best way to look at the KAMRUI P2 is as a smart, pragmatic choice for someone who is tired of paying for features they don't use. You are paying for a solid CPU, a healthy amount of RAM, and a lot of connectivity. You are not paying for a fancy chassis, a brand name, or a lot of pre-installed bloatware. It is a utility device. It is meant to do a job, stay out of the way, and keep running. In my opinion, that is exactly what a computer should do. If you are currently working on an old laptop with a cracked screen, a failing battery, or a keyboard that skips keys, the P2 is a fantastic upgrade. You can just plug in your existing monitor, keyboard, and mouse, and you are back in business with a machine that is likely faster than the one you are currently using. It is also a great way to transition into a more organized workspace. By moving the computing power off the desk and onto the wall or behind the monitor, you gain a lot of usable space, which can actually help you be more productive. Regarding the software experience, you will find that the Ryzen 7330U handles Windows 11 very well. The UI is fluid, the animations are smooth, and the search function works quickly. Because the SSD is fast, boot times are measured in seconds, not minutes. This is a massive improvement over older systems that rely on mechanical hard drives. Once you get used to that level of responsiveness, it is very hard to go back. One final thought on the value of this machine. If you find it on sale, it is a no-brainer. Even at full price, it is competitive. There are cheaper mini PCs, but they usually cut corners by using inferior processors or less RAM. There are more expensive mini PCs, but they often offer diminishing returns for the average user. The KAMRUI P2 sits in that sweet spot where you are getting enough performance to be happy for several years, but you are not spending a fortune to get it. To summarize, the KAMRUI Pinova P2 is a well-engineered, efficient, and highly practical mini PC. It is not going to win any beauty contests, and it is not going to run the latest games at high frame rates, but that is not what it is for. It is a workhorse. It is for the person who needs a reliable machine for their daily tasks, who wants a clean desk, and who appreciates the value of good hardware that doesn't cost a premium. The Ryzen 7330U is a great choice for this form factor. The 16 GB of RAM is generous, and the expansion options make it a machine that can grow with you. If you have been looking for an affordable, capable, and compact computer, this is definitely one that you should put on your shortlist. Remember to check the link below to see the current pricing and availability, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this specific model, or if there is anything else you would like me to cover. As we look at the broader landscape of desktop computing, it is clear that the days of the massive, under-the-desk tower are numbered for the average user. Most people simply do not need the expandability of a full-sized ATX case. They need a machine that can connect to the internet, run a browser, handle documents, and maybe stream some video. The P2 does all of that with energy to spare. It runs cool, it runs quiet, and it takes up almost no space. It is the definition of a modern, sensible desktop computer. When you are setting up the P2, take a little bit of time to tidy up your cable management. Because the unit is so small, cables can quickly become the focal point if you're not careful. Use some Velcro ties to bundle your power cable, your video cables, and your peripheral cables together. If you are using the Visa mount, you can even hide some of the extra length behind the monitor. A clean desk setup makes a huge difference in your focus and productivity, and the P2 is the perfect foundation for that kind of environment. I also recommend that you spend a few minutes in the Windows settings to optimize your power plan. Since this is a mini PC, you might want to set it to a performance mode if you find yourself doing heavy tasks, or a balance mode if you want to keep the fan noise to an absolute minimum. Windows makes this very easy to do, and it is a small tweak that can customize the experience to your specific needs. If you are a student, consider the benefits of a machine like this over a laptop. A laptop has a battery that will eventually degrade, a screen that can be damaged, and a keyboard that can wear out. With the P2, you have a modular system. If your monitor dies, you replace the monitor. If your keyboard stops working, you get a new one. The computer stays the same. It is a much more resilient setup for a dorm room or a home office. Plus, the price difference between a laptop with these specs and this mini PC is substantial. You could buy the P2 and a very high-quality 27-inch monitor for the price of a mid-range laptop, and you would have a much better viewing experience. I also want to reiterate that if you are planning on doing any kind of light media editing, make sure you are using a decent set of speakers or headphones. The audio output on these mini PCs is usually handled by the integrated controller, and while it is perfectly fine for basic tasks, it is not an audiophile experience. Plugging in a dedicated DAC or using a USB-connected audio interface will give you a much better result if you are doing creative work. Ultimately, the KAMRUI P2 is a testament to how far technology has come. It is incredible to think that we can have this much computing power in a box that fits in the palm of your hand. It is a far cry from the computers of even a decade ago, and it is a great time to be a consumer. You have choices, you have performance, and you have value. If the P2 aligns with your needs, it is a very easy recommendation to make. Just be honest about what you're going to use it for, manage your expectations regarding gaming and heavy rendering, and enjoy the clean desk space. It is a solid, reliable, and well-thought-out piece of hardware that is going to make a lot of people very happy. Before I sign off, I will just say that if you do decide to pick one up, take a moment to enjoy the simplicity of the unboxing and setup process. These devices are designed to be plug and play, and you should be up and running in just a few minutes. It is a nice change of pace from the more complex setups we are used to. Thanks for watching, and I hope this review helped you make an informed decision. Don't forget to check those links below for the latest details.